If you're looking at buying your first studio light or adding a second light to your setup, the brand name WeLight may not be the first name that you would think of. But in this video, I'm going to tell you why you definitely should check out the Ninja 400 Bi-Color LED Studio Light. Kia ora, good morning everyone, Rich Wong here. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to have a look at the WeLight Ninja 400 Studio Light. This is a 150 watt COB LED studio light and the price is under $380. And not only that, it is a bi-color LED light with the color temperature you can adjust from 2500K all the way to 8500K. The price and the spec definitely seems very attractive, but is it actually a good light or not? I'm going to do some comparison with the Aputure 120D Mark II Studio Light. You may think, why do I compare with the Aputure light? Because the 120D Mark II is first almost double the price of the Ninja 400, and also that is a single color studio light compared to the Ninja 400, which is a bi-color light, and most of you will know that a single color studio LED light is normally quite a bit brighter than a bi-color light. The reason why I do this comparison is because the Aputure 120D Mark II is probably one of the most popular studio light that a lot of people would buy as their first studio light. So I want to see if this Ninja 400 could be a good and also a lot more affordable alternative compared to the Aputure 120D Mark II. The Ninja 400 comes in a very nice and very compact carry case. Inside it, you'll find the Ninja 400 light. You also have the controller. There is a separate power supply, all the cables that you need. There's also a remote, the user menus, and also a solder strap for the carry case. Just like most other studio lights, the Ninja 400 has a metal construction. The weight of the light is a bit lighter than most other similar studio lights in the market, which is a good and bad thing. The good thing is it is lighter, so it is better when you need to carry it around. But on the other hand, when I have the Ninja 400 placed next to the Aputure 120D, the Aputure light does feel a little bit more solid than the Ninja 400. The difference is not big, and I don't think it would affect the actual performance or anything. But if you do have the two lights side by side, you can feel the Ninja 400 is just a little bit not as solid as the Aputure 120D. One thing I really like about the Ninja 400 is that it has a very nicely designed quick locking tab with gears behind it, which allow you to adjust the angle of the light very quickly and also lock it very securely. And the light uses the standard Bowen mount, so it should be pretty easy for you to get any light modifier for the Ninja 400. The controller for the Ninja 400 also has the metal construction. It feels pretty solid, and also it has a very large orange color LED display there, which displays all the information that you will need. For example, the power, the color temperature, and also the channel and group for the remote control. There are 3 buttons on the side for you to turn on, turn off the light, and also jump to the different settings that you may want to adjust. And there's a pretty big dial next to it for you to change the settings, for example, the color temperature or the power of the light. Power is adjustable from 0% to 100% in 1% increment. And for the color temperature, you can adjust from the minimum color temperature 2500 degree to the maximum 8500 degree in 100 degree steps. I wish the light output at 1% could be a little bit dimmer, as I found sometimes even at 1% it is still quite a bit brighter than what I want. But it is an issue that I have with pretty much all the studio lights that I have used in the past. You can attach V-mount battery to the back of the controller and use it to power the light. One thing you need to know is if you're using the V-mount battery, the maximum power of the light is now reduced to 80% of its normal power. So the maximum output is 120 volt when you are using the V-mount batteries. If you are doing a large lighting setup, there is a DMX input and output port at the bottom of the controller so that you can plug in this light to your DMX lighting controller. Unfortunately, I don't have a DMX light controller myself, so I couldn't really test this feature. Apart from using the buttons and dial on the controller or using a DMX controller, there are also two other ways that you can control this Ninja 400. The first one is using the supplied remote control, so you can use this to easily control the Ninja 400, or you can also download the WeLight app onto your smart device, and then you can use the smart device to control the Ninja 400 light. The setup is pretty easy. You just need to match the channel and the group on the light with your remote control, and then you can control it remotely. And if you have more than one Ninja 400, you can either assign them to the same group or you can assign them to different groups so that you can remote control them all at the same time, or you can remote control them separately. While the app is a little bit simple and there are a few things that could be a little bit more polished, I do really love using the app to remote control the light so that I don't have to reach to the controller every time when I want to make some adjustment. However, one thing you need to know is right now the app is only available for the iOS devices. So if you only using Android smartphone or smart devices, you wouldn't be able to enjoy this app to remote control the Ninja 400. Setting up and connecting the Ninja 400 is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Basically, you just plug in the controller to the light using the supplied cable, and then the power supply to the controller using the another cable. One thing I noticed is the cable that connects to the power supply is plugged into the top of the controller instead of bottom. So because of the weight of the power supply, I'm a bit worried like in the long term it may cause a bit of stress to either the connector or the cable itself. Pretty much all the studio lights in the market would have a cooling fan on the light, and they all say their cooling fan is ultra quiet. But in reality, most of the fans are actually, well, I probably wouldn't say super noisy, but you can hear them when you are filming inside a quiet indoor area. But with the Ninja 400, the cooling fan actually surprised me because it is quite quiet compared to the other light. Like when I have it side by side next to the Aputure 120D Mark II, the cooling fan on the Aputure light is definitely quite a bit louder than the cooling fan on the Ninja 400. So that would make the Ninja 400 a pretty good choice if you need to film in a very quiet area and you don't want to pick up all those cooling fan noise in your audio tracks. In terms of the brightness or light output from the Ninja 400, the official figure is the maximum brightness is 16,700 lux at 1 meter, which seems to be very good. But before we do the brightness test, the first thing I want to look at is the color temperature, because it is a bi-color LED light, and also it has a really wide color temperature adjustment range that you can go. So let's have a look at what it actually looks like when I change the color temperature from the minimum color temperature to the maximum one. So let me start from the minimum color temperature, which is 2500 Kelvin. And now I'm going to slowly increase the color temperature all the way to the maximum color temperature, which is 8500 Kelvin. Adjusting the color temperature when the Ninja 400 running at full power is very smooth and the changes is very graduate. But when you lower the output power, the changes in the color temperature becoming not as smooth and also starting to jump a bit. And as you lower the output power, this effect becomes even more noticeable. The color temperature range that you can adjust is more than most other bi-color LED lights in the market. So if you want a light that gives you big flexibility in terms of the color temperature, the Ninja 400 is also a pretty good choice for you. Okay, next let's look at the maximum brightness. So I did a test in my garden at night. So I have all the lights in the garden turned off, and I have the Ninja 400 placed at about 6 to 8 meters or so away from the fence. And just to give you some idea about how bright the Ninja 400 is, I do a quick test first using the LumeCube panel LED light, which is the brightest pocketable LED light that I have tested in the past. And even with that LumeCube LED panel at 100% power output, you can see it can only barely light up the scene. And this is what the scene would look like if I light it up using the Ninja 400 at 100% power. And for comparison, this is what the scene looked like if I use the Aputure 120D Mark II and light it up at 100% power. Looking at the test footage side by side, it seems like both lights at 100% power output, the brightness is pretty much identical. But when I look at the sample photos that I shot as well, when the light is output at 100%, I noticed the Ninja 400 is actually brighter than the Aputure 120D Mark II. So that is definitely a little bit surprising, because I thought the more expensive and also the single color Aputure 120D Mark II would be quite a bit brighter than the Ninja 400, but the results show that it is actually not the case. However, while the Ninja 400 may be a little bit brighter than the 120D Mark II, if you look a little bit closer, some of you may already notice the Ninja 400, there is a little bit of magenta color tint if you compare to the 120D Mark II. I won't say the color tint is very serious, because when I was previously testing the Ninja 400 by itself and I shot quite a bit of video and photos, I didn't really notice that magenta color tint. But now when I have the side-by-side comparison with the 120D Mark II, then now I do definitely see the difference in terms of the color temperature between the output from these two lights. I guess this is the price that you have to pay for when you are getting a bi-color LED studio light compared to the single color one. Okay, so what do I think about this Relight Ninja 400? I think in terms of design and build quality, it is good. It's not great, but consider the price, I think it is better than I expected and definitely more than acceptable. I like how you can control the light using the pretty nice designed controller, and also have the DMX input output, so you can connect to DMX controller. Also, it comes with a remote, and also there is a iOS app for you to control it in many different ways. I also like how the cooling fan is very quiet compared to most other studio lights that I have used in the past. In terms of brightness, that actually surprised me quite a bit, because I was thinking that this bi-color studio light would be quite a bit dimmer than the Aputure 120D Mark II, but turns out it is actually slightly brighter than the 120D Mark II. So that is definitely a big surprise to me. The only issue that I find with this Ninja 400 is that there could be a bit of color tint when you're outputting at some certain color temperature. To be fair, the color tint is nothing too serious. If you are lighting up your scene with just the Ninja 400, you probably would not notice it at all. But if you need to mix it with some other light source, some other studio lights, then there could be a little bit of issue. But overall, consider the price, the feature, the maximum brightness, and also the fact that this is a bi-color studio light with a very wide range of color temperature that you can output. I think this Ninja 400 is an excellent value for money light that most people who is looking for their first studio light or their second studio light would be really happy with. Comparing the Ninja 400 with the Aputure 120D Mark II, I think the design and build quality is probably not as premium as the Aputure light, and also there is a bit of color tint that I mentioned before. But other than that, remember the Ninja 400 is almost half price of the Aputure 120D Mark II. So if I am going to rebuy my studio light setup, I would probably go for the Ninja 400 because for the price of one 120D Mark II, I could buy two Ninja 400 which give me a lot more flexibility in terms of how I set up the lighting, and also the fact that this is a bi-color light, so that gives me even more flexibility on how I can light up the scene. Or I could just use the price of one 120D Mark II and buy the Ninja 400 and use the spare money to buy a few different light modifiers.